Welcome to the book club interview. My name is Scott Hollister, your host. Today's guest is Joe Duncan, all the way from Australia, who wrote The BluePrint. So Joe has a little bio I'm going to read for you now. From battling cancer and going through chemotherapy at the age of 17 to growing an Australian-wide personal and professional development company, growing a social media following of over 1 million followers in less than 3 years, and becoming a nationally known personal and professional development coach. Joe is now helping corporations and entrepreneurs take their business and brands to the next level. Joe is the author of The BluePrint, which is an interactive workbook that helps you build the habits, routines, and skills it takes to live a truly exceptional life. The BluePrint has been sold in over 120 countries and has been implemented into school curriculums in the US, real estate agencies, and other big organizations. Through the BluePrint program, Joe has worked with students, celebrities, professional athletes, and top CEOs around the world. Welcome to the show, Joe. How are you doing today?
Hey, Scott. It's great to be here, my man, and hang out with you. I'm really looking forward to today.
Me as well. And I tell people this all the time, and I was as part of that teacher who brought the curriculum into the schools, and I absolutely love the workbook. It has changed my life more than any other book that I could think of, so thank you for putting it together.
Man, that means a lot to me, and it means a lot when I hear those stories because I know it's a great tool, and if you use it like you have, Scott, it can transform your life.
Of course. And even your Instagram page, before 5 a.m., that has been aligned with the BluePrint and has changed my life on the social media side. So thank you for putting out quality content as well.
Hey, man, least I could do. It's a mission. It's a purpose. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Definitely. So you've spent a lot of time and creative ability to design the BluePrint book. So why was it important for you to build this for others?
When I went back over my life and I had read every book, I'd listened to all the audio books. I love all your normal mentors. We've all read, watch their material. There were a couple of fundamental flaws in my whole life. I just couldn't kind of piece it together. What was the flaw with everything I'd been reading? And the two flaws really were lack of time, which explains before 5 a.m. And the other problem was the lack of a workbook or tool to help me actually work through everything I'd read. So yeah, we all absorb the information and put the book back on the shelf. With the BluePrint, it's not really a book in that sense. It's more a tool you use to create your life with very simple steps. And I invented my BluePrint a few times over the years. And it wasn't as good looking as the one you guys get now. It was a bunch of paper and folders. It was a mess. But basically, I came down to this methodology, which basically transformed my life from being a guy who's like everyone else, who feels in their heart and soul, hey, you know what? I have a gift, to have a talent. But no one's out there patting you on the back saying, hey, Joe, why don't you go and motivate people? Hey, Joe, why don't you go find your voice? As you know, no one says that to you. It just doesn't happen. So I kept searching, kept fighting within my own heart to work out how to get to that place. So I built this system, this process, which basically walks me through how to rebuild my entire life from the ground up. And that is the BluePrint. And if it's used properly, in the right method, you will find the answers.
Great. Now you have broken down the BluePrint into 10 parts, and the first part is clarity. Why is that important to know exactly what we want before we can design and build the life we want?
Yeah, you look at our lives, and I've been down this road. You have too. You go down the road, and you leave school, and you go down this road, and whatever happened to being an astronaut, whatever happened to being a racing car driver, whatever happened to being whatever you guys wanted to be when you were 5 years old, it goes out the window. You go to school, get a job, blah, 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 meet a girl, meet a boy, whatever. So very quickly, our identity gets changed. Who we want to be gets replaced with who we fit into the world as. So clarity really is the key. You can't build your life without vision. You're kidding yourself, you're kidding the whole world if you think you're just going to build your life and hope things go well. There's a lot of people who do, but I coach a lot of those people. They've been successful. They have built a great life. But when they go back in time and when they really look at their life, they didn't really build the life they necessarily wanted to build. So clarity is really power in the sense of get really clear on what it is you want to build, create, and share. And this is really the big thing I'm big on. Don't worry about what you can accumulate. Don't worry about what you can have. Don't worry about all that other stuff. Your life really comes down to those three things. You're here to give of yourself. You're here to build. You're here to share. Once you live in that paradigm, the world opens up to you. But most of us, as you know, we don't live in that paradigm. So you've got to get clear on who you want to be, what you want to become, what you want to create. And that's it.
Great. Now, part one, you call clarity is power. So what are some questions you ask people to discover, some clarity for themselves?
Yeah, look, there's a bunch of little questions. And when you go through that process, I actually ask the same question a few times, many different ways. I want to come at it from the point of view of, see, if I sit down and say to you, hey, Scott, what's your purpose? You might say, something, I want to help people, I want to do this, I want to do this. If I ask you what your passion is, see, where we have a problem in this world is certain words trigger different elements in our mind. So you have to, when you look at your life and your vision, you've got to tackle it from many different areas. Because some of you have a passion, but you don't have a vision. Some of you have a purpose, but you don't have a passion. And you've got to find out what that is. So once you ask yourself those different questions, like what's your passion, what's your purpose, what do you want to do before you take your last breath? One of those questions, or a few of those questions, will resonate with your belief system, what you want to create. Once you get through those questions of finding out what your passion is, what your purpose is, what you believe you were born to do, what are some of the experiences you want to have, then you can start to build your life and your values, your routines, and every other part of your life around this core. And what everyone else does normally, they do it the other way around. That's why it doesn't work.
Great. Now, after clarity, you guide us to discover our unique purpose and passion. And why is there no easy answer for this topic?
Yeah, there is no easy topic, no easy answer, and it's simple. You go back to when you're a young kid, and there's a lot of ideas flowing around in your head. And then all of a sudden you kind of conform into normal life. And you've been a school teacher, and it's always best to just put your hand down and go along with the flow. So very quickly over time, we lose that unique spark we have. Some of us are lucky in the sense of you're born into the right situation, right family, right circumstances. Mum and dad know that you're going to be a great singer, so they can support you. And you get lucky like that sometimes. But the greater majority don't, because people around them, no one can identify what your gifts and talents are, only you. And if someone does, you're usually very lucky. You can't play that card. So finding out what is in your heart, what's in your soul, is always hard, because it requires us to dig deep, and it requires us to be honest. And very quickly, once you become an adult, you build a belief system around what you've already created and accumulated. Which is why I say, for example, if you go to university and you get a degree and then you get a job as a lawyer, your belief system is now tied to that process. And it cannot not be tied to that process, because your whole life is built on that process. And if you take that analogy and example to every other part of your life, what happens very quickly is you can't dig deep, you can't find your gifts and talents, because you're not used to digging deep, and B, you've built your life on a whole different set of values and gifts and talents. So you have to ask yourself a tough question. What am I born to do? What do I like doing? And sometimes, and that's why I ask many questions, but sometimes your gift and talent can be your passion. It can be something you're passionate about, you care about. It doesn't always mean, I think where a lot of people go wrong when you use the term gift, talent, and things like that, finding their inner voice, we all go to the top. We think Tom Brady. Beyonce, you think the best of the best. But your gift and talent and calling may very well be to be the best nurse in your community. And that gift and talent gives you a level of fulfillment no amount of money, no amount of experience or anything else can give you. So that comes down to also being honest with yourself. And then secondly, and finally on that point, not being too easily influenced or malleable by what you see on social media or online or with your eyes, because that often causes the problem.
Mm-hmm. Very wise. And I love how you ask those tough questions, part one, part two. And this is just a sidebar, but I want to say I love that checklist at the end of each chapter. Before you can move on, you got to make sure that these items are checked. It's a great addition.
Yeah, thanks, mate. I those are little things, you kind of go over it a few times. You go, well, if this is going to be a tool we're going to use, let's do it properly. And it's almost like a coaching program, really. And if you hear my voice in the back of your head, then even better.
Nice. Yep. So we're moving on to powerful and purposeful goals. So
Yeah.
what is the main goal of part 2? So do you have any
All
tips on how we can remain honest with ourselves?
Yeah. So just a quick point before we get to part 2, the average client and person I work with takes 8 times to get through part 1.
Really?
8 to 16 times before we get a real answer on average. So I bet when you did your first blueprint, it was all service level stuff on part 1. Do it again, you get a bit deeper, better, and before you know it, there's nothing that you wrote down in your first blueprint that aligns with your 8th blueprint. You get down to nitty gritty. So generally my rule, and I've seen this many times, it's 8 to 16 times. Average person's 8 times before they say, Joe, I'm tired of it, whatever, I just want to be this. And you go, done, we've found the answer.
Nice.
So once you've found part 1 and your clarity and your purpose and your vision, then and only then can you set goals. Because what are your goals if you don't know what your vision is? You guys want to go out and buy a house tomorrow in your local suburb and spend $500,000, get a job, get a mortgage, but your dream's to, as I often say, go work in the space program, and you want to be out there in SpaceX, or maybe you got to go to Texas and work with NASA or wherever they're based. So they're not aligned. So there's no point buying a house next door to you and me or living in Sydney if your dream's to be in a space program. You better get out to where it's at. So your life really revolves around that. So your goals are really stepping stones to achieving your vision. And the goals are not an end goal. Your goals are constantly changing. They can be small steps, they can be bigger steps, but they really have to be steps for you to get to this vision and create this entire body of work. Second to that, your goals, and this is the big thing that I try to help people with, is your goals are not something you sit down and just write down and that's it. Once you've written down your goals and done the research, hopped on Google, done the maths, done the equations to work out how this happens, read the books of people who've done what you want to do, then you work out how and why this can happen. That no one really studies their goals. And it's amazing how many people have a goal to be a millionaire or a billionaire. I'm cool with that. You can have any goal you want. But what I want to know is, tell me how it's been done before. Tell me the mathematics, the equations. Talk to me about the process. How many years does it take? The average billionaire takes 20 years in the game before they see their first few million. You got to know. And then from that level of understanding, you can then form a mental picture around this thing happening, without the pressure of trying to be a billionaire within 4 weeks. You know?
Yeah.
So that's a big factor.
Yeah, I can't believe it. Yeah, no, like you said, I've been doing it probably since 2015, the blueprint, and nothing's matched the first one. It's just scratching, but that's the beauty of it. You can, you create this blueprint every 90 days, and you get to refresh and regrow, and so you don't stay stagnant.
Yeah, 100%. It's a tool for life. It's not if you're getting the blueprint and you think it's a one-off thing, then don't bother getting it. Go and use it as a tool that you use every day, every 90 days. And that is actually how you build your life. Constant evolution, constant change, constant tweaks.
Great. Now, let's say we're getting distracted by all these, shiny things out there. So what are some good tips that, we can remain honest to our true selves and our passion and our purpose?
Yeah, that's the hardest thing. And when you're young, as I said, energy of the young, hey, that's cool. That's how the world goes around. When you're young, you're going to be easily malleable because things are shiny and they're cool. And why can't we have nice things and cool cars and great experiences? And that's all cool. But at the end of the day, and I assure you, it's not, it won't make you go to bed at night any happier with yourself. Having those experiences, yes, owning those things and doing some of those things won't. So staying true to yourself really is the art of deciding very quickly who you want to be, the type of person you want to be, and what you want to create and share. If you can always stay to that line and positioning in your life and not stray, and you will stray, that's an actual life journey, I suppose. But if you can stay relatively close to that and give yourself enough time, the patience is what kills you, especially when you're young. You need 10, 20, 30 years. And where everyone's going wrong is they're trying to do it all in 2 or 3 or 10 years. Anyone that's built anything worth having takes multiple years, decades usually. So once you understand who you want to be, the type of person you want to be, that's the model you fit into. And don't stray because, if you don't want to have a tattoo and that's not your belief system, but because it's cool, everyone's getting a tattoo, you go and get a tattoo. Well, there's a problem here. That's your first strike. That's your first conflict. And there's a billion examples, Your friends like going out and drinking and doing that on Friday. Well, your dreams and goals are slightly different to that. Sure, you can go out and have a drink and that from time to time and hang out with your mates. But you got to pull yourself back into line. And it's like being your own parent, your own guardian. You have to be that higher power of yourself. And that's generally, I've been very blessed in my life that I've always been able to do that. I've never been overly, I generally have stayed on track. I've never really steered off track except, chasing shiny things occasionally. But for most people, where they really go wrong in life is they get off track really easily because they see something and they want to be that, and then next month they want to be the next thing. And if looking like a hipster's in this week, they're a hipster. If they're looking like a rock star 2 months later, so they're constantly moving around. So nothing serves them as who they are. And second to that, and final point on that Scott, is things in life have to serve you. And if they don't serve you, be utterly ruthless in removing it. And that's anyone or anything. And that's the tough one. That's why we most probably go off track more often than not, because we have a value and belief system which is, as good people, we try and do the right thing. Sometimes the right thing is to do the right thing for your vision, your purpose, your mission, because that's the piece of the puzzle the world's missing. That's the piece of the puzzle you're missing.
Such deep wisdom. Yeah, I love it. Love hearing it. So, purposeful goals. What time frame, do you recommend that we plan our goals in?
How often?
Yeah.
Yeah, you and me talked about this a bit on the phone. We work in that sort of 90-day game plan. You can get your head around 90 days. If I ask you guys to go and set goals in a month, we've all been there before, nothing happens. The month goes by and you know the story. 90 days is usually enough time for you to get it right and wrong at the same time. It gives you enough time to have a few off days. It factors in enough elements for you to be able to hit your target at the end of 90 days. And if you look at your life, if all you did was hit, say, 3 targets every 90 days, you'd be a very happy man. You'd be a very happy woman, because most people are hitting 3 targets a year. They're not hitting 3 targets a decade. So that's number one. Number two, only have a small number of goals. That's my general rule. The goal is to achieve goals, build momentum, build confidence, do it again. Like a muscle. Now, if you keep setting goals and not achieving goals, it's a bit like a muscle as well. You're not working it. You're not getting it done. So I generally always say 2 or 3 goals a month or a quarter. Let's get that done. Let's tick that off. Let's build some willpower within. Let's get the nervous system believing we can do this. And then off you go. You do it again. You do it again. You do it again. And then, like yourself, a quarter can have a lot of goals now.
Great. Now, part 3, now that we know what we want, planning and preparation, this is where the real work begins, as you say it. So how are we going to achieve each goal?
Yeah, right. So the real work does really begin there. And I kind of hinted at it before. You have to do the research. And if you don't know everything about your goal, then, as I often say to a lot of people, don't call me, don't message me until you've got that part of the equation done. You have to know, with no uncertain terms, how this has happened before. What are the key factors? What are the drivers? If you don't know how to do up a tie knot and you want to go work as a lawyer in a law firm, for example, where everyone dresses up in a suit and tie, then you have to learn those things. There's certain things you have to learn. And what you want to do is understand all those different elements. And what usually gets most people unstuck is those small things like that. It makes them nervous because they don't know how to do things. They haven't positioned themselves and prepared themselves in a way to actually achieve their goal. And I see this time and time again. They want to be successful, but their mindset, their dress sense, their whatever it is doesn't fit into the parameters of that industry or ambition they're going for. And obviously that changes over time. But at the end of the day, for most people, you're not looking at all the fine details to make sure you can get in the game. Once you get in the game, you can change it. So I think most people never study their goals, Scott. And I've spoken to you about that before. You've got to know all the little nitty-gritty details of your goals. You've got to know the precise elements and how has it been done before. And I looked at it when in my life many times where I set goals and I did no research. So if you looked at my goals and one day, I'm sure my journals will be available for everyone to look at. There are all these crazy goals in there, all with 6 month to 1 year time frames. And guess what? There was no methodology behind it. There was no understanding. I didn't read 10 books on people who've already done that. I didn't know how to do these things. You can hop on Google and find out very quickly. If you want to own a house, if you want to, whatever your goals are, well, let's find everything about it. And here's the other side of that coin. The way the energy of the world works or your life works, the research makes it real. It gives you energy. It makes it seem like it's possible. And it's a bit like when you start driving a car. You don't know how to drive a car. But now if I ask you to reverse park in the shopping center, it's not something you think about. But when you're starting out, because you've never done it before, but the more you read the road rules, the more you do it, the more aware you are of your parents driving the car around or whatever it is, the more aware of other people you are, the better you get at it. And guess what? You start to believe that maybe I can drive a car by myself. And all of a sudden you do. And that's the same with your goals. The more you research it, the more you read it, you develop a belief system that, all right, that's fine. These people have had a worse situation than me, or an upbringing which was not favorable. I've had a good upbringing, blah, blah, blah. And you start to come up with this picture that I can do it, and this is how I'm going to do it. So that's why it's so important to know everything about your goals. If you don't know about your goals, then what do you know about them?
Which brings us to the person we must become. So part 4, and you talk about how we can evaluate ourselves and in moving forward. And you talk about the 3 key areas are strengths and weaknesses, current traits, and areas to improve. So what are some good questions to ask ourselves before we get started?
Yeah. A lot of people ask me what's the most important part of the blueprint, and I swear I have a different answer every day of the week. But I do believe, other than the first couple of parts, the person I must become is most probably the most important part of the blueprint in many ways, because the part we forget about goal setting. Most people leave that off their whole goal setting chart. They have all these goals. We want to achieve all these great things, and there's the biggest piece of the puzzle is who I must become. What type of person? What systems do I need to have mentally in order to become that person? So the biggest questions you've got to ask yourself when you look at the type of person you must become, you've got to really look at it from this point of view. Who are the type of people who are doing what I want to do? So you look at a few things. You're in property yourself, Scott. So if you were to sit down and start from scratch, blank sheet of paper, you've just landed from Mars, you would go, all right, what do these people do? What's their schedule? What's their routine? What's their style? What's their vocabulary? What are all the elements? What do they know? What don't they know? All that kind of stuff. And what you want to do, it's not about not being authentic. It's about actually positioning yourself so you can compete. So you can play that game, number one, in terms of professional sense. And then second to that, it's also about positioning yourself where you're happy as a human being in life. By knowing what type of person you are, it determines, like I said before, a lot of not having to jump around and going to different styles and looks and following the latest trend and being so malleable. You get to stick down this road of, okay, I know who I am, I know what I want to do, I know what I'm about, and this is how I'm going to carry myself through life. And if you look at what creates most misery in your life, it's most probably when we feel we haven't carried ourselves to a standard which represents who we want to be when all's said and done. And we've all been there before. We make that mistake. We say something stupid. We do something which is out of line, and you just beat yourself. You whack yourself in the head a few hundred times, and And that leads to the ongoing flow of so on and so forth. So I would say the most important thing you've got to work out is, who do you want to be? And does that person serve you? And you've got to be very methodical in that process, because a lot of people, and I see this, as you can imagine, they reach out to me and they want to be this or that. And I can tell you in an instant, you're not aligned with that. You're not in that space. Now, that doesn't mean you're never going to be in that space. What we've got to do is build a man, build a woman before we build everything else. And that's so important. And you've got to look at yourself as a machine, or you've got to come up with an analogy in your head where you can look at something you built, whether you pretend you're Astro Boy or a Transformer or whatever you have to do in your head mentally to work out that you have to build yourself up. And it's not just about having these wild goals. And if you look at everyone who lives the life you want to live, there's a very methodical process they've gone through. A lot of them subconsciously, but they've worked out the equation, and usually it's you.
I love that. That's beautiful, starting with a strong foundation. And I think this is one of your strongest suits, Joe, if I don't mind saying, is how you put out this beautiful content that's, clean, organized, and inspiring. And that's what you talk about in part 5 is tying up our loose ends. So how do we clean up our life, sort out the mess and get things in order to focus on what's actually important to us?
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's what kills a lot of dreams, right? Your life's a mess. So there's no time, there's no energy. Everything's all over the shop. Your office is a mess. Your house is a mess. And then your matters are in a mess. You got 2 gym memberships. You got 2 car payments. You can consolidate things. But you don't, because you're lazy. You got a time and energy problem. And that time and energy problem usually starts from your environment. So before we work on the time and energy equation, many times we've got to work on the environmental situation. And what are the key elements which stop you from going forward? If your credit card's always maxed out and you don't feel that you can go out and buy dinner with someone you aspire to being or would like to learn from, that's a problem. And all those little things get you over time. And they're so minuscule as a single thing. But over time, it's the compounding of it. You know what? I can't come out today because I've got to run around and pick the kids up, or your life's a mess. And what happens is you miss out on opportunities. So the way you move forward in life, really, when you get the basics right and some of the stuff you've spoken about, you now have to prepare your life as you had to prepare yourself in the chapter before. Now you've got to prepare your life for success. What does that look like? How can I thrive? How can I move forward? That usually means cleaning out the cobwebs and getting, absolutely clear on what needs to be done, tidying everything up, making sure your matters are in order, get your paperwork in order. And I'm always surprised how many people's lives are a mess, and especially a lot of entrepreneurs, because 90% of their time's focused on building their business and staying afloat. So everything else goes to hell. And trust me, I've been there many times before. Things get away from you. So you want to give yourself time to get that in order. It might take you a couple of months, a quarter to get it done, but it's one of the areas of your life which will make one of the biggest differences, where you'd see that impact straight away. So get your matters in order. I have a checklist there with a few ideas, things like banking, finances, all those little things. And if you look at your life, there's all these little elements which make up your day-to-day life. And then you wonder why you can't, achieve your goals when you've got this and that to do. So tidying up your life for most people is key. And if you look at most successful people, granted they have the resources, but as I always say, did they have the resources before, or were they organized prior? No one really knows the answer, but generally speaking, they lead a very simple life.
Yeah.
Most very successful people, they live clutter-free. They are very picky and choosy about how they run their life, and they also have people in place to manage the bits and pieces which everyday people do themselves.
Mm-hmm. And that was the clarity in the part 5. I think we were talking about that little checklist of each little loose end to tie up. That helps so much, because you felt like you're going through all the stress trying to figure out what you're doing. You're floating just above the water, and once you got that completed and those things checked off, it felt like you could breathe. You had those little things, not nagging at your attention anymore. So
yeah, 100%. And there's many clients I work with, funnily enough, where we start there. A lot of people, if we can tidy up the environment, then we can see the vision again. if we can tidy up the mess and the chaos, then possibility enters your life again, rather than constantly feeling you're stuck and burdened with the day-to-day mundane stuff you have to do.
Yeah. And you touched on this earlier. This is part 6, habits, rituals, and routines. So, what type of habits are important to develop when just starting out? Probably one right off the top of my head I can remember is getting up before 5 a.m.
That's right. So there's a bunch of routines you have to run. But if you look at your life, and it comes down to a methodology. Most people want to be free in their life. That's why they don't do anything. Because our lives are so constrained, we have no freedom. But when we get a chance to be free, we stuff it up completely. The key to living a free life is absolute discipline and running routines, habits, and rituals. So the rest of the mind, body, and soul is free to roam. Everyone gets that equation the wrong way around, as I did many times. So routines, habits, and rituals serve you and make you better. They free up your time. They free up your energy. If you make your life, especially your morning routines and your evening routines, which are the bookends of a day, you can control them a bit better. If it's like brushing your teeth, then you don't think about it. It's not a problem. And having those routines and rituals allow you to function at a high level. And when you're stuck in life and you're not playing at your highest level, as I said, it's energy and time issue, and then it's production and effectiveness issue. And once you clean up those areas of your life and you realize, all right, I want to be a purpose-built, purpose-driven machine that gets things done and lives life to my fullest, so I've got time for my family, my kids, my business ideas, well, then you have no other option than to have very strict routines, very strict sleep patterns. There's things you have to do in order to function, operate at a high level. So some of the routines I obviously recommend is going to bed a bit earlier, waking up a bit earlier. Waking up early allows you to focus on yourself before the sun comes up, before everyone nags you in the morning. And as I always say, no debt collector calls you before 5 a.m. in the morning. So you guys have about 3 or 4 hours to, get through your things before the phone starts ringing, asking you for the bill to pay it, right? Yep. So that's your sane moment. And if you use those hours well, you can build your life. And when I built before 5 a.m. in the personal development company, I always wanted to build. I never, had the courage to go out and do it. I built everything you guys see today just about while I worked for someone full time. So between 4 and 6:30, 4 and 7 a.m. that was my time to work on my passion. So part-time on my passion, full-time on my job. And then over time, building enough time and experience and getting an understanding of what I have to do, that equation changed. Then I went to being able to work full-time on my passion. And then part-time on a job to keep things fine. So, and then now full-time on my passion and purpose. So having those routines and rituals, especially the morning ones, because you can't always control the rest of the day. But generally between 4 a.m. and 8 a.m. you're usually fine. Then chaos breaks out. So having some good morning routines are most probably key. Some of the other routines, if you look at your life and you come from a belief system that you're an energy being, which is a good belief system and most probably have, then you will create energy throughout your day. So working out throughout the day, eating right, eating lean, eating green. There's a lot of systems and processes you can have to perform at a very high level. Those things won't make a difference over a week, but over 3 years, over a decade, you'll notice the difference. And that's where routines get most people. Where it gets most people is, it sounds great, Joe, but I've done it for 2 days and I don't feel anything. Right?
Yeah.
And that's where, so it's a system and a process. It's the factory worker gets better as the more they package the things. First day on the job and they make the stuff and they put the packages together, but 100 days in, 200 days in, 3-4 years, it's second nature. And you want to build your life on a lot of second nature premises, so you can free up your mind and energy to do the things you want to do.
It's beautiful. Moving on to part 7, values and beliefs. And this is something I always struggle with. What's the difference between values and beliefs?
Yeah, there's not a massive difference between the two. They are ultimately one and the same. But if you value certain things in life, then you'll always, that will be your ceiling. So if you value family and comfort and all those nice things, then that value is most probably in conflict with you wanting to be a billionaire. They're in conflict, generally speaking. So your values not aligned. Your beliefs is how you view yourself often and how you view the world. If you believe that a certain type of person or a certain type of thing is not good for you or good for you, that can make an impact in your life. So your values and beliefs are twins. They often are the same, but you need the two representations to find that answer, if you know what I mean. A bit like how in the first part of a blueprint, you got to tackle it from many different ways to get the right answer. So your values and beliefs, I was actually making a video about this morning, which was about if you want to change your life, you have to start with your values and beliefs. Your values and beliefs most probably don't serve you any longer. And most people live from the age of 5 to the rest of their life with the same value and belief system, and it doesn't serve you. And the biggest change I made in my life was I threw out the rule book because it didn't serve me. It didn't serve me to believe that I didn't have the credibility or skills to be in personal development, to be like the guys I admired or aspired to be. I needed to do this, and that. I needed to build all these different businesses and make billions of dollars. Then I can talk to people. Well, not really. My job is actually, my gift and talent is this. So the belief system was out. So that's a good example of a belief system or a value. Most people value certain things which are in complete conflict with everything they want. So once you've designed our vision, then now you have to throw your values and beliefs out the window. And now insert values and beliefs which only align with the vision. And that sounds pretty hard line, but life is pretty hard line when you're talking about the success a lot of people are after. If you're not after that success, then don't put yourself under that pressure. But most people who approach me want to be the best they can be. They want to do it to the best of their ability. Then there's a very specific pattern you have to run. And that pattern requires you to change those values and beliefs. And if you are stuck with a $500 mindset, that $500 is all the money in the world, then you're going to struggle to have a $500 million lifestyle or mindset to achieve the things to make the impact you want to make. And I've had that challenge too as an entrepreneur as well. You know, many times in my life, and I say this, I needed $500 a week to keep my dream afloat. So I didn't care how it came about. That was always the number in my head. And I got that number because in the old days, I'd work at a supermarket and make about $400, $500 a week, you know, part-time. So then I went out and started my first business, and I worked out, well, I'm managing to live off $500 a week. So that means if I can make just $500 a week from my business, then I don't have to work a job anymore. And that belief system continued for a long time. Guess what? It didn't serve me. It served me for those first couple of years in my first company with my best mate, Danny. But after that, it doesn't serve me today. It doesn't serve me building the personal development company. So those are the small shifts you have to make. And some people have massive belief and values conflicts. And I would say almost every client I work with, their biggest limitation is their current value and belief system. It does not match up with their God-given gift, talent, or mission in life, or even their aspirations and goals. So if you can't fix that one up, it's your biggest limiting factor. How exactly you fix that up takes a fair bit of time to dig deep and find out what your real values are in life. And you can see this with people around you. And one way I do it is if you go out and hang out with your friends, hang out with people you know, just take a step back and watch them. And you will see everyone's values and beliefs. The bill comes out for $500, and some guys like, I'll pay the bill. And some guys there going, let's split it up. That is a classic example of what two people's values and beliefs are generally. And then other examples, when someone, how people talk about other people, when they judge other people, you can find out very quickly where their values and beliefs are. So if you want to find out without having to dig too deep, go out into the real world, and you can very quickly look at people around you, people you work with, and work out very quickly where their values and beliefs are in life, by what they say, how they act, what they do. And then with yourself, you apply that and go, all right, hang on. Well, if I'm doing this all the time, I don't really value fitness. Or if I do this all the time, then I'm not that serious about, making money or moving to Bali and living my dream life, So that's a big factor, really, your values and beliefs.
Yeah, and I think you really nailed down that explanation. If you take your values and beliefs and here are your new goals and they don't align with that, throw them out. And I love that explanation of the $500. That right there clicked in my head. I was like, okay, now I understand.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
We've all been there before. We know what it's like to have a $500 mindset with big dreams.
Yeah,
It doesn't work.
No, not really. So the time for action is now in part 8. And so far we've built the game plan. And what type of action plan do you recommend?
Yeah, right. So we work from the process of a 90-day game plan. So once we've fixed up all our goals and everything, we look at 90 days. Your 90-day game plan is broken down into the different areas of your life. So you can break it down however you want, and that's why the worksheet and the format's pretty open. Mm-hmm. You break it down basically by the areas of your life, so finances, relationships, fitness, health, whatever you want, passion projects. And underneath each of those columns or boxes, you decide what the goals are for the next 90 days. For some of you might want to lose, 5 pounds. Some of you might want to hydrate your body a bit better, run a bit better habits and routines. Some of you might want to save $10,000 in the next 90 days, whatever it is. So get it down, have 2 or 3 for each section. That way it's manageable. Because when you look at your goals normally, it's just a big bloody list of things which become overwhelming. So chunking it down into small groups of areas of your life, and then from there you build your weekly and daily plan. Your weekly plan, really mostly 80% of it has to come from the 90-day plan. That way we're always working on it from a chain of command point of view. Okay. Chain of command at the top is our vision, purpose, where we want to get to. But the 90-day game plan has to report back to the vision. The weekly game plan has to report back to the 90-day game plan, and your daily action plan has to fit into the weekly game plan. And then from there, what happens is you start to move forward. This is the catch. We want to move forward. We want to get to the top of the game. Mm-hmm. So every day, every week, those things have to serve the empire. They have to serve the belief system and the values and beliefs and the vision that you want to create and the person you want to become. So if you look at it from that point of view, it is like a chain of command, and you follow those steps, and all those steps have to match up. The alignment and lack of alignment is what kills you in life. The lack of alignment, doesn't matter what you want, whether it's right or wrong, whether it's even for you or not, a lack of alignment will destroy you. So you want to make sure all those things align. That way you're not getting tossed around in the ocean. You're sitting calmly while the storm's going on and you know where you got to go. Your daily action plan, and you have that, and I know you use it, is broken down into really simple parts at the end of the day. A few tasks you got to get done, and then a few sort of mundane things you have to get through every day. So making 5 sales calls a day or 10 sales calls a day is not a big task. That's just your job. That's like brushing your teeth. So that just goes down in the lower section. At the top of the big projects you got to get done. Today I've got to do boom, boom, boom. And if you're being honest, you only ever have 2 or 3 a day, maximum. Maybe less. Most people maybe less than that. So that's how you you build it. And then you go back to your weekly game plan, you go back to your 90-day game plan, and make sure all those pieces somewhat fit into the day ahead or the week coming up. And if you do that multiplied by years, it'll become secondary nature where you won't even need your blueprint because you'll know how to do it. And then you'll move forward. And the goal, as I said, is to move forward.
Progress over perfection, right?
That's right. Perfection will come.
Yes.
But not yet.
Part 9, we got to visualize our goals. So what the mind focuses on, you get. So do you have some visualizing techniques you can share with the listeners?
Yeah. I mean, there's a billion ways to visualize, and some people meditate, some people ponder, some people read magazines and look at the images and read books. The best way I've found in my life is to wake up in the morning, close my eyes, listen to some music, usually instrumental music, nothing with words in it generally, and go to a place within where I can imagine and create what is in the unseen world, and bring it into this world. And by going to that place every morning, I'm able to see how this thing can play out. I can see all the different elements. I can understand how it would feel, what's possible. And that's really what visualization is. You want to sit down and visualize the unseen and what's possible. That is a muscle. Some of you can draw. Some of you can just sit down and think about it. Some of you already do it in your day job. You call it daydreaming. But basically, you want to sit down and every day think about what's possible. And it's like a muscle. Everything we're doing here is like a muscle. We want to work it. Our imagination muscle was very strong when we were kids. And then over time, it loses its sort of, as we have more stimulus and life gets a hold of us, we lose our imagination muscle. So it's just the ability to see and feel what's possible. There's no exact science, and there's many levels you can do it at, but to make it approachable, because some people are going to have different experiences when they visualize. Some people are going to need to have magazines and be very visual. Some people can go to the soul like me. Some people need to draw it out, map it out. Some people need to go to the site and go and see the building they're going to build, the development they're going to create, the car they want to own, or the car company they want to own one day. So it's a combination of all those energies of feeling it, touching it, being a part of it. Mm-hmm. And you have to become this person before you become the person. This is something I'm always saying every day of any of my clients or anyone I work with. You have to become that person before you're actually that person. And most people, they never take that step. So you have to create it in some realm before anyone else will ever see it. You have to know what it feels like, what the different materials and the smells and the way of life that you're going to create is going to be like. And even if you don't have the money and resources, because that's the only thing you're missing now, is the money and resources to make it happen. If that's all you're missing, then as far as I'm concerned, it's done. That's the easy part. Obtaining money and resources to go do what you want, well, that's the easiest part of the spiritual journey. The hardest part is all the other bits. Getting into it, feeling it, understanding what it is you want to create, reading about people who've done it. So it's that beautiful combination of all those things. Visualizing isn't always necessarily just sitting down and meditating and trying to imagine what isn't there, but that is a major key. So what you have to do with that is the whole process. And in your free time this weekend, go and, if your dream's to build a classic development or a marquee building in town, or you want to get into property development, then go and find out what that looks like. Go and see it, get around it. And that's visualization. So there's many different tools which allow you to visualize it. And like a muscle, the more you see it, the more real it is. And that's true for your life now. The more you see your current situation, the more it becomes real. So you want to take yourself out of that space. And if all you're doing is hanging around, it's the old adage, if all you're doing is hanging around millionaires, chances are you're going to become one. Because that's all they're talking about. That's all there's a certain energy there. And like I said, if you go back to the philosophy that you're an energy being and it's an energy realm, then your job's to give as much energy to a certain thing, then you can very quickly crack the code. And visualization is a major key.
So now we've made some progress, and now we have to measure our performance in part 10. So, so far we designed and built a detailed blueprint for our life. So what are some tips on how we can maintain and measure our performance and progress?
Yeah, that's the real work, isn't it? We've all sat down and done the work, and then how do we maintain it? So you've got to measure and track your performance. One thing I was always weak on was that. I think we all are. But if we're going to move forward, if the empire is going to be built, then we have to every day do something, every week do something. And if we fall short, then there's a couple of factors to determine why that happens. Most people I coach or work with, they're not lazy. Why things don't happen is because there's a couple of tweaks that need to be made. Most people I've ever worked with for help don't have a laziness problem. They don't let things just go. There's a couple of tweaks that need to be made in how they approach it or how they measure that goal, and how they go about it. So that's what you got to do every week is find out why you're not doing something. And if you've done it, tick, done, fantastic. You've done it, I'm on top of it, I'm feeling good. But really, when you measure and track your performance, you're looking at the bits you didn't do. And usually it's not this big catastrophe that you're messed up. It's just a way you relate that concept to yourself is usually the biggest factor. That's why you've got to constantly keep talking to yourself and trying to relate what needs to be done in a way which works for you. If I say to you, Scott, you've got to raise $10 million this week, blah, 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 that may not work. But if I find another approach which allows you to get to $10 million, but it's a different way of looking at it, a different way of measuring it, a different way of understanding it, then chances are you might get there. And that's where you've got to be very mindful of when you work with yourself. So measure and track yourself. That bit's relatively easy because you tick off what you've done. But now you have to coach yourself, because you guys don't have thousands of dollars a month to spend on a coach. What you have to do is learn to coach yourself. And even if you have a coach or a mentor or someone like that, they're not really there all the time. So one thing I'm really big on is teaching everyone I work with or the material I share is to help people be their own coach. Because 90% of the time, you've got to be your own coach. And coach yourself through, talk yourself through. All right, hang on. Why didn't I save $3,000 this month? Or why didn't I hit my fitness goals this month? What were the factors? And write it down, map it out. Okay, well, maybe I, was too busy watching this, or I was stressed out, I couldn't do that, and then find a way. You've got to keep looking for a way in to make it work. And that's why you've got to keep measuring and tracking your performance.
It's amazing. I'll tell you right off, I think that's what I struggle with. I'm the best 90-day blueprint maker, but the measuring the weekly performance, that's where I was falling short. So I like that.
That's all right, but that one's easier to fix. You just got to get it done.
Yep.
Then we can start ticking boxes every 90 days.
Yep, I love it. So before we wrap things up, Joe, so I want to ask you one question. So what's your great hope and wish in life? Because you're a man of passion and value.
Yeah, my vision and passion and the thing I live for more than anything really, and the philosophy always lived within me, but not that I ever claimed it before, but my biggest value in life and the thing I most want to see is see humanity move forward. I know from the reality of why I do what I do isn't necessarily from the personal development realm. It's a piece in my puzzle of trying to move humanity to a high level of awareness, to being able to help other people achieve great things, to be able to move the technology, the systems, the processes, the way we live to a more beautiful existence for all beings on this planet. That's what drives me. And that's why I have Impact Billions, where we're trying to bring awareness to certain things. I have Before 5 a.m. to make the time-energy equation more attainable for most people to solve that problem. So my mission in life is to help people live a more beautiful existence. And I do believe we can. If you're authentic, if you're true, if you do it for your own reasons and you do it to a level which suits you, you can make a difference in the world. And helping people find their unique gifts and talents, I believe, is the key that unlocks that whole process. If you allow human beings to find their unique gifts and talents and claim that power of their voice, with enough people doing that, you will find that the world will become a better place as a whole. That's my big dream. That's what I live for. Other than that's my day. That's my whole mission in life. That's my every dollar I have, every minute I have goes into this vision. Doesn't mean I get it right all the time. But I can assure you guys, living with that kind of passion and focus, it changes everything. The equation is very different to the boy I was not long ago. 5 years ago, feeling this in my heart but not being able to do anything was a pretty painful experience in many ways.
Yeah, that's a beautiful purpose and vision. Thank you so much. Like I said, for the last 3 years, I've been using the blueprint. I highly recommend it to anybody that comes in contact. I'm like, this is just something that is going to help you get clear on what you want, know who you want to be and what you want to achieve. And it's a beautiful guide that you keep using over and over. So I highly recommend it. Thank you so much for being on the show today. So before we wrap it up, do you want to tell the listeners where we can find out more about you?
Yeah, sure, mate. And I'm so grateful for letting me come on, and I'm so grateful you used the blueprint to the fullest extent. And no doubt, Scott, you are one of the best when it comes to using a blueprint, and you've used it to transform your life. So you are right. Your 90-day game plan is immense. So, yeah, look, if you want to connect with me, it is before5am.com. That's where you get the blueprint. You download that. You get 2 PDFs. If you want to connect with me, there's Before 5am on Instagram. And then you can always shoot me an email at joe@before5am.com. But yeah, other than that, I love hearing from you guys, and I hope you're using your blueprint to better your life. It's your tool. It's up to you guys to put the content into it. It's your space. It's your place to create and have fun. And creating your goals and working your goals is something I say to you, Scott, before I go. It's got to be fun. And if it's not fun, if it's not colorful, it's not a bright experience, don't bother. And that's where the blueprint process is meant to be fun. Turn your music on, pretend you're at a nightclub, pretend you're on a yacht, go have fun. It's a colorful experience. And it should be more important and more fun than anything else you do in your life. Planning your life has to be just the highest level of what you can do every day. And if you come from that place within, you'll find that the whole goal setting, building my life, creating stuff, your life becomes a cool project. And that's really, I think, something I really want to help people understand. But you can work on your life. It's not just boring spreadsheets and white bits of paper and black pens.
Yeah, no, I love it. You put out beautiful content, and that wisdom that you have is just, I don't know how you can fit so much in such a young age. So thanks, Joe.
I'm still working that out, mate. Thank you,
Yes,
Scott.
sir.
Have a great day, mate. And thank you for letting me on.
Thank you. Have a good one.
See ya.
And that concludes our interview with author Joe Duncan, who wrote The Blueprint. This is a amazing workbook and manual to help guide you to your dream vision and goals. If you ever wanted to accomplish something great, this is a beautiful blueprint, so well organized and designed by Joe that I highly recommend it to anybody. The cost is extremely low for the value that it will bring your life. And it's not just something that you're going to do once and set it and forget it. It's something that's continually going to help you as you progress on your journey to achieving your dream goals. And that's it for today. My name is Scott Hollister, your host. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook, and we'll see you next time.